I want to isolate one question. Because there is President Trump. When you're president, Iran's not in your top 5 list of to-do list. It's economy, it's re-election, it's family, it's the border, it's building the wall, it's all these things. It's staff, firing this person, hiring the next person, all these things that's on your mind, right?
Yes.
But to someone like you, Iran's in your top 3 that you think about. When you wake up in the morning, you probably want to find the first stories that has to do with Iran. Why? Your last name, who you are, what you've done, that's your interest, right? If I'm the Yankees general manager, when I wake up, what's the first thing I want to see? MLB, Yankees, trade, all this stuff, right? But if he's watching this, or if his camp is watching this, okay, and you were to say, just want to let you know, what you did in 2018 and 2019, here's how close you were of Iranian people flipping and that place being forced to go back to getting rid of the, all the chaos that they create in the Middle East, whether it's funding of the Hezbollah, the Houthis, all these other things that we can look at. How close was Trump accidentally to cause Iran to fall? How close were they?
Well, obviously, the momentum was in the right direction. And this is why he received a lot of appreciation and support from Iran itself, to the point that he even sent messages in Farsi to the Iranian people. But that's with the Iranian people's assumption that he actually means to put the kind of pressure that will give them a chance to then ultimately mobilize themselves against the regime. The very same people who appreciated that approach and toughness by his side, if they think that he's here to throw them under the bus and cut a deal with the regime, will be the first one to react negatively to it. Now, I'm not saying this only from the point of view of...
Is this the one you're talking about, the tweet in Farsi?
Among others.
Okay.
I'm not saying this only because I'm Iranian and I care about the Iranian people. I think...
You mind if I read this to the viewers?
Yeah, of course, please.
This is in January 11, 2020. To the brave and suffering people in Iran, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my government will continue to stand with you. We are following your objections closely. Your courage is inspiring. That's his message, and he tweeted that at Real Donald Trump in Farsi. So
the question is therefore is, which one is it then? Are we going to fall back to an isolationist mode all of a sudden? Or are we seeing the results and the feedback on public opinion? Because, look, I think one of the issues that comes across the desk of analysts or specialists or people who want to have a better understanding of whatever country we talk about. It could be North Korea, it could be China, it could be Iran, it could be whatever. Isn't it about understanding the actual thinking of the people in that country? Let me go way back, just to give you an example. Do you remember, of course, immediately after 9/11, what was the mood on the streets of countries in the Middle East following September 11th?
What was it?
Do you remember Al Jazeera television and showing, people rejoicing on the streets of many of these so-called allies of the United States, celebrating the September 11th?
That there was an attack on the U.S. and America, got caught off guard, and it was an embarrassing moment for U.S. and they're celebrating that embarrassing moment.
And do we remember also that the only country where people went on the streets the same evening after the attack, holding candlelight vigils in sympathy to the victims of the September 11th attack, were the people of Iran. Iran was the only country which its regime has the most hostility towards America, but the people have the most sympathy for America. I think Americans need to remember this. Sometimes we forget about things too easily, too fast. So that tells you that when you are talking about trying to come to terms or deal with a regime that is inherently antagonistic to America and all of its values, as opposed to a nation that aspire to the very same values and principles of liberty, of human rights, of separation of church from state as a prerequisite to democracy and freedom of religions, we think, like you, we want to have the same values that are incorporated in American law, the law of the land, the American Constitution. Even if you look at the way Thomas Jefferson was inspired by Cyrus the Great, who was the first one to bring about the very principles of human rights by liberating Jewish slaves in Babylon and helping them rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. And as the descendant of Cyrus, we Iranians take pride in that. What the world of a difference it will be if you have the people of Iran freed from this regime and be truly represented. And you yourself, Patrick, you know what success Iranian emigres and or people who were basically now part and parcels of America as Iranian Americans, how successful they're being as entrepreneurs, as business people, as leading in all. And imagine the potential to have all these resources and their counterparts in Iran bring about the change we want, bring about an element where you have a different Iran that is at peace with Israel, with Saudi Arabia, and regionally, we provide that element of stability that doesn't require America to have to deploy its troops or its fleet in the region to maintain stability. That's the whole difference. And now, as an American taxpayer, now as an American who say, we have no business getting involved everywhere else, what you're doing is, in fact, helping yourselves but not having to do it in the place of others. But if you lag in that, not only you will be dragged into it no matter what later on, but it'll be worse than what we have right now. And the best way to avoid and eliminate all of these problems is to make the situation
I got a follow-up for you. So I want to show this clip because I had never even seen this clip that you were talking about until we just pulled it up right now. So there's an article out there that says Iranians who gathered for a soccer match in Tehran 2 days after the 9/11 attacks observed a moment of silence in Iran. There was also candlelight vigil. Huge crowds attended candlelight vigils in Iran, and 60,000 spectators observed a minute's silence at Tehran soccer stadium. Rob, if you can play the clip, if you have it, it'd be great to see this. Go for it.
The U.S.-led war on terrorism is getting at least verbal support from some among a one-time adversary, Iran. In Tehran this week, demonstrators held a candlelight vigil for victims of the attacks in New York and Washington, and Iran's foreign minister was quoted today as saying his government wants those behind the attacks, quote, tracked down and severely punished. Where Iran's controlling mullahs stand is unclear.
Yeah, so when I see that, you know, it tells you where the Iranian people are at. Even when I lived in Iran, the people, we admired America. You admired what they did. It was like, oh my God, this other family is going to America. It's a dream, right? America was and at the same time, I lived there when all you heard was Magbat Amrika, you know, all these things that you hear. But I want to show you this. So I made a amateur chart here, and I want to see what you say about this, okay? So Trump, do you think Trump's sanctions brought you halfway through of pressure in Iran where something has to happen, okay? Because I think he brought it all the way there, right, to the 50% mark. What do you think is the rest of the 50%? Because I don't think he's going to be the guy. You heard what he said about Liz Cheney yesterday. Oh, they're a war hawk. All they want to do is go to war. I don't want any war. He got endorsements from Muslims in Michigan standing up and saying the reason why we're voting for this guy is because he's going to stop all the war in the Middle East. So that's his reputation from his first term. There is no war. If that's 50%, is that it, Rob?
Yes.
On what they're saying, this is you should play this clip. Muslims supporting Trump. Go ahead, Rob.
Good afternoon, Michiganders. As the president said, we just had a positive meeting with President Trump. We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war.
So we can pause it right there, right? So Muslims being behind him because he's going to stop war, which means Trump's probably not going to be, you don't know, but we go based on first administration, he's not going to be sending troops to Iran to help him topple or regime, all that stuff falling. If he's saying, guys, this is how much I'm going to do for you, the rest is on you, what do you think the rest is?
Well, again, it's a perfect question. And also, I would like to take this opportunity and to say that in our optic, at least from my viewpoint, and I think many of my compatriots share this analysis, we're not asking for America to intervene militarily in the first place. If nobody wants war. And war is not going to be the solution either, because you don't need to have war to have that change. I revert back to...
How are you going to make these guys leave, though?
Well, this is a regime that is extremely repressive, meaning that the Iranian people need to have an element of having, a fairer chance to succeed. This is not going to happen without having what I was suggesting earlier, that parallel to maximum pressure, have also a campaign of maximum support. You're right in your chart of saying that he came halfway. And in fact, if we look at all the charts that we have seen, if you look at the way the regime was curtailed, the fact that the level of executions in Iran was half of what it was between the Obama administration and the Biden administration, was in fact as a result of the regime backing off because they were facing something, pressure. The old adage of peace through strength. But let's define what strength means. Strength doesn't mean that you divest completely without having something to replace it with. Strength doesn't mean that you always have to have boots on the ground to enforce your interests militarily. Strength means that you find the right allies, work with them, but you need to nurture that. You need to be able to give them the footing they need to be able to succeed. What can bring change in Iran? Let's analyze that for a second. And how can it tie into what I think would be part of the foreign policy of, let's say, the American government?
If you were interested in this topic with Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, odds are you're Middle Eastern, maybe you're Iranian, Armenian, Persian, maybe you're living in the Middle East, or maybe you're an American that wants peace in the Middle East. The last 13 years, I wrote this book called The Academy. It's a very interesting thing. I talk about his father. I talk about moments why the revolution took place with this character named Asher, who is half Assyrian, half Armenian, and he gets recruited to the secret society. And the villain in the book is the former deputy director of Savak, who is in the book breaking down why the fall of Iran took place, what mistakes that were made. And very interesting what happened when I wrote this book. I never wanted to publish this book until I finished building my insurance company. I published a couple months ago. Something very strange happened when I was at the tail end of finishing this book. I get a call from somebody saying the former deputy director of Savak wants to have a call with you. I said, the former who? Deputy director of Savak. They don't know the villain is in this book. That person had read the book. I have a Zoom with the deputy director of Savak. He reads the book, calls me back immediately. I need to have another part 2 with you. Did you write this book about me? Am I the villain in the book? I need to come and meet with you face to face. He comes to my house. My dad meets him. My wife meets him. We have an 8-9 hour meeting together at the house because of what perspective he had that caused Iran to fall. Some of that is documented in this book. Again, this is a fiction book based on true stories. If the topic of Iran, the revolution, leadership interests you, I think you would really enjoy reading this book, The Academy. You can go to Amazon or a QR code here to order the book. I look forward to having you read it and posting a review on Amazon because I read every single one of them. Enjoy the read. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.